Dr. Charles Eugster has lived a very prolific and active life, but the paradox is that he started doing so at the age of 85. Although he was a doctor by profession, a dentist who spent the majority of his career in the UK nursing after his children and having a love for repairing teeth, the secret passion of his started to burn at a time when it starts to diminish in other people's lives, at 85 years of age. From a sedentary lifestyle with a wife and kids, to a sprinting champion well into his 80s and 90s, this is the story of Dr. Charles Eugster, the man who defied the biology and physics of human anatomy and physiology. Dr. Charles was born on July 26, 1919, in London, England, and although he spent the majority of his career as a dentist, there was a secret passion that he had put on hold for way too long. 40 years of his life after graduating as a dentist, and little did he know that the last 12 years of his life would give him more joy than what he'd lived up until that point. Choosing to change your ordinary and traditional lifestyle to become a bodybuilder and a professional sprinter at the age of 85 is definitely a mark that is worth being engraved on his gravestone. Even though Dr. Charles is no longer with us, as he left this planet on April 26, 2017 at the age of 97, the legacy that he left behind is enough for us to write an entire book on how life should be lived. To keep things into perspective, this is the author of Age is Just a Number, What a 97-year-old record breaker can teach us about growing older we're talking about. And I don't know about you, but if Dr. Charles spoke to me about lifestyle, I would certainly be listening. But before we talk about the life-crushing, or in this case, the life-enlightening event that revealed a long-hidden passion in Charles's life, let's see who Dr. Charles actually is. This is the doctor who said retirement is a very dirty word and should not be used as such. And this is the man who was considered the fittest 96-year-old on the planet, setting world records in his age group in races ranging from 60 to 400 meters. A twice-married father of two, Charles has been in the producing waters long before he published his own book, as he produced a dental letter from the age of 75 to the age of 82. And although he had a medical degree, he did not choose the bodybuilding and fitness life until a certain trauma triggered the alarm bell much later in his life. And while many would be quick to fall into depression and take their own lives, either actively or passively, by living a life based on bad nutrition, this was not the case with Dr. Charles. Although he chose to be a dentist for the entirety of his professional career, bodybuilding and starting his own fitness program only became reality at the age of 86. It's worth noting that not only was he able to participate in the 100 metres and 200 metres of the British Masters at Alexander Stadium, but he also broke both of the records, setting times of 23.87 and 57.26 seconds respectively. But how was Charles able to smash world records after not having to do anything with fitness his entire life, and then all of a sudden wanted to be the cool granddad in the family gatherings who found second youth in his hidden passion, fitness and bodybuilding? For starters, the last 12 years of his life have gone on to prove one thing: age is just a number. Of course, there are a lot of variables that can affect a human being once he arrives at the age of 86, especially the comorbidities that one carries with himself, such as brain insults, heart attacks, diabetes, osteoporosis, spondylosis, and many other situations that not only affect the quality, but the quantity of life as well. With this in mind, I cannot say that Charles was the fittest and healthiest member alive, as he contracted tuberculosis during the war days, enough to make a man suffer from chronic complications or even brutal death during the disease's acute period. But paradoxically enough, the death of his wife was what brought more life into his veins. Charles's second wife, Elsie, died when he was 82, and the pain he felt at that point was something he really wasn't ready to fight with. Charles has often spoken about how painful the grieving process was for him and his old soul, and he gave himself 3 years left on this planet, not knowing that when he hits 86, a revolutionary life path would unveil itself right in front of him. I was 82 when I lost my wife, Elsie. It felt like I died with her. I could not see beyond a handful of bleak and final years. Conscious that my body was seriously failing me, I became convinced that I would die at 85, and Julie began to wind down in preparation. My muscles were wasting away. Alone in the house, I had plenty of opportunity to think. It occurred to me that I was bored and inactive, and both served to accelerate the decline in my physical function. I want you to listen to this part again, very carefully, and then come back to talk about mental health and willpower. More often than not, We take many things for granted while being young, and this tuberculosis survivor, during the time when the disease had a very high mortality rate, found it in himself to be a fitness and bodybuilding model for the world, while many others would prepare for life after life. I can talk about diseases and comorbidities all along, but there's only one thing that keeps a man alive: his mental state. You cannot rise from the dust if you haven't touched rock bottom once in your life. And while many get to experience this in a younger period of lives, Charles did at the age of 82, which is why he decided that enough is enough. And once he saw that he wasn't leaving planet Earth at the age of 85, the most drastic measurement was taken from his side, becoming a fitness trainer and a bodybuilder. So, what's his secret? The good news is that there is an alternative. After finding myself at rock bottom, I took steps to change my life. I might not have known it, but my best years were ahead of me. I call this alternative approach successful aging. It comprises of 3 simple factors, and the first is work. I'm aware that many people can't think of anything worse than staying in their hatred job for another couple of decades. But maybe this is a time to retrain or try a new line of work that builds upon your talents. Perhaps you could volunteer for a charity. Now, one of the main issues from which the elderly suffer a lot, and the younger population has started to show worryingly increasing numbers as well, is bad nutrition. This is a measurement that Dr. Charles believes can be reversed back to normal even at old age. And while he did admit that it is very easy for us all to fall into bad habits, he did say that it's even easier to get out of them with enough mental willpower. One of the key aspects he aimed at was visceral fat as one of the main killers of the organism, as this is the fat that invades organs in your body, such as the liver, pancreas, intestines, heart, and kidneys. So, how do we get rid of it? According to the doctor, it is possible to lose visceral and subcutaneous fat by not giving up too much of your life's comfort zone and sticking to a certain diet in combination with exercise. The food that we are eating has a huge impact on the quality of our lives, and as muscle mass begins to fall away with age, Dr. Charles believes that it was very important for the elderly to eat foods enriched with protein, such as fish, eggs, and meat. While vegans might get angry about the doctor's choice of foods, the reality stands as it is. Elderly people need protein in order to keep their organs functioning well and alive, especially if they're planning to embark on the journey that Dr. Charles embarked on 12 years prior to his death. While he also believes that it's very possible to gain the lost mass of muscle that comes with increased age, a process in which he was very successful, and when talking about this matter, he went on to say, in conjunction with a specified exercise regime, this will help rebuild lost muscle. And yet, older people tend to consume a diet rich in carbohydrates, such as potatoes and bread. Consider it the fuel, if you like, in your bid to age successfully. Then, there is exercise. We know that loss of muscle mass occurs with age. The traditional response is lots of gentle exercise, but this doesn't always work. Training 6 times a week in my 80s did nothing to stop either my muscle loss or the slow accumulation of body fat. What's needed is a means of rebuilding muscle. This can be achieved through intense, regular strength or resistant workouts that promote muscle growth. If you don't want to have a pancake butt, as Dr. Charles said, you might find the motivation and willpower in yourself and not wait until the age of 86 to do so. What Dr. Charles's example is showing us is that the sooner we start taking care of our body, the sooner it will start to give us the awards that we've been waiting long for. And with this in mind, I don't think you need more motivation to be proactive in your life and start changing things that you don't like about your physique. As Dr. Charles said, you should never be satisfied with your body unless it makes you happy once you see yourself in the mirror, which was the first time he decided to opt out for a career in bodybuilding and fitness. Craving strength, a longer life, and the body of Adonis at the age of 86, many would have considered him a fool. But the next 12 years of his life were dedicated to proving to everyone that age is just a number, and anything is possible to the right believer.